the questions. We try to take as meticulous notes to my peers and I so that we don't forget anything. Honorable Rosabu, you asked the question of the police to population ratio. Currently is 1 to 600. The UN standard is 1 to 450. We are working hard to get to at least to the UN level standards. The truth of the matter is this, honorable members, as you know, we didn't recruit for about 2 years because of budgetary issues, and because also we wanted to step up the equipment and acquisitions for our security sector so that we are at bar with some of the challenges that we are facing right now. Now that we have resumed again the recruitment, we will be working hard, subject to budget allowing, to ensure that we move fast enough to meeting the standards. And I know that you asked the question in the context of the deployment that we now have explained that we have done with the Office of the Deputy President. I understand, and I think this issue has come up again and again. We, Mr. Chairman and honorable members, we learn through experiences. Now all of us as a country are learning, because this is intertwined with a question that was asked by another member of parliament. I think it's Honorable Kaluma who said, what happens to, no, it's Honorable Ogu Kaunya who talked about businesses and public office. Because the expectation is that when you are in public office, you're supposed to walk away from private sector responsibilities so that then the two issues don't clash, such as cases we're having to deal with. It tells us one thing, honorable members, there's some work that we still need to do. There's some work we need to do in terms of tightening the law. There's some work we need to do in terms of looking at Chapter 6 and tightening our responsibilities, because quite clearly there is an overlap or the clash between business and public office sometimes can cause challenges such as we are dealing with. But again, on this particular score, I plead for my colleagues, the heads of the security agencies. You know, if you are the Inspector General and you receive a request of this kind, it becomes very difficult to say no. We have been riding on this, as I say, unregulated question on the numbers and the extent of deployment, and now is the time for us to look at it again and come up with a statutory action that will now regulate the numbers and say, for example, even if you have VVIP, the ratios of the officers deployed to you will not exceed this number, as it were. Otherwise, if we leave it open as it is now, and no one knows this better than Honorable Ukaunya because he was in this sector before, he faced this same issues before. If we leave it open like that, these issues will keep recurring, and you can see clearly the propensity to abuse this is real. It can be abused. For example, in 2018, we all agreed at the National Security Council that we are surrendering prison warders from protection duties, because when we looked at the ratio of prison warders to inmates, it became clear that we have enough numbers in the APS, in the SGB, and the new commando units we are creating to provide VIP protection. So let us all return, officers from the prison service to do their correctional service work. But you can see still, even in the contingent that is guarding the Office of the Deputy President, we have about 13 officers from the prison service. So unless there's a strict and stringent regulation and enactment of the same, and then we enforce it, all of us, so that it applies across the board, we'll keep encountering these challenges as we go along. Is there a special code of conduct on how to handle these changes and deployments when they come? The answer is actually no. As Honorable Buyu asked. Because as I said, we cannot second guess the Inspector General of our National Police Service. He takes decisions on our behalf throughout. He takes decisions on a 24-hour cycle, and he has the best intelligence and information to make certain decisions. So we cannot require him that if I want an officer from my ethnic community, you must write to me, and then I get the letter and so on. There's no security system that operates that way around the world. We are becoming more and more modern, the state. So in respect, therefore, I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, that there is no code of conduct that was violated in this case, in terms of the changes that were made. Nothing was violated. And in fact, there's a question I don't want to ask now because it can steer us off to another debate. How is it that these questions are being asked now when we have done this rearrangement several times before, even in that office? How come that these issues are coming up now? And we've done so many of those rearrangements before in many other VVIP offices, including that one. So the question is, it's because we are within a political context and straightforward, professional, departmental actions are being unnecessarily politicized and being subjected to, emotional and irrelevant politics, unfortunately to the detriment of the stability of the country. But I think on a balance of probabilities, going forward, after the clarifications we have made today, we are all going to be aligned on this, because facts are as they are, things are clear to everybody. There is no downgrade of anything here. We know we are doing what we must do, and we are continuing. But I cannot plead with you enough as a committee that we need statutory action on these issues of ratios, even for VVIPs and numbers and so on. Otherwise, you are going to force police officers to open an OB for chicken. You are putting police officers to guard a poultry farm, so they will now be running an OB there for chicken. This chicken arrived at this time, they left this time, and so on. It's a joke in the long run if we are not, going to be organized in that kind of manner. Honorable Okukaunya asked the question about police reforms and the unified command. It's a question of the unified command. As you know, and Mr. Chairman, indulge me to say this is more or less like a personal comment, that every time you listen to somebody like Honorable Okukaunya speak, you feel the pleasure of a knowledgeable person, because he's speaking from a position of knowledge. If people were debating these issues from that kind of position, we wouldn't even be having this kind of hullabaloo around the country. Because you see, the quest for a unified command was intended to make police effective, efficient in the delivery of service, but also, again, to grow our capacities to deal with our dynamic challenges in the security sector. That is why, for example, when we came up with an all-women commando team, that is now making headlines and doing us great stuff, is because we wanted to have this integrated, prepared, because there are circumstances where we need to deploy special units of that kind, as it were. The unified command is a journey, Honorable Kaunya. It is not going to happen in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. Even we internally are having a debate, because since 2018, when His Excellency the President directed this and began this phase of working on a unified command, we've worked on this for about 3 years, and sometimes we step back and ask ourselves the question, is it working well for us? For example, how does it relate to Ngao? And how does it relate to deployment? Is it interfering with what we are doing? The questions abound. But we are just about to begin reviewing, the implementation of this for the last 3 years. I know issues will come up, or some things we need to change, as it were. But it is a journey. It's something we're working towards. But now, and I think that is what you are referring to, because of that unified command, it is much easier to integrate the various units and various formations to get them to focus on a task at one time. If we have a challenge, for example, at a particular border point, we actually can pull together, for example, ASTU, QRT, Border Patrol, and GSU, even if it's contingents of, the G company, and deliver on the assignments that we have. That's exactly what we are doing right now in Laikipia, where we are forcing a challenge. And our GSU commandant was briefing us this morning about his approach, and you can see clearly that because of that unified command approach, we are moving more towards being much more effective in terms of responding to the present challenges that we deal with. But it's a journey, and because you are our committee, when we do the assessment and the evaluation of what you have done, we'll bring the report to you and we'll discuss it with you. And many of you who come from this background will have an opportunity to comment about what we need to do more and what we need to do better to strengthen ourselves, as it were. Is there a gap in the law in terms of business and public officers? The answer is yes. And as I've said, you can see the conflict that we are dealing with. It's apparent, or spoken to very strongly by Honorable Rosa Buyu and Honorable Kaunya. It's some of the reasons why we are facing the challenges. Honorable, the late Sergeant Kenei came from the AP, and he was part of the staff, 40 strong personnel from the AP at the Arambe House Annex, which is the office of the Deputy President. I think That's a direct answer, and then that is it. Was the DP made aware? This was asked by Honorable Tekla, and I think I answered this question earlier, Mr. Chairman. You know, there is a distinction. There is what you may call a fundamental change, and there is what is routine and quasi-routine. Just imagine if every day you are reorganizing, you are doing deployment. I gave you a classic example. Forget about the person of the DP and somebody who occupies the office of the DP. Just let's take a routine office like a regional commissioner. If every time you are doing rearrangement, the Inspector General was doing rearrangement of the police command in Nairobi, he has to keep writing and so on. I mean, it's unnecessarily laborious, as it were, because all of us work in this context, and all the actors who are supposed to be there know what needs to happen. There was nothing major that was being done here. And as I said clearly, if we weren't in this political context where we are, nobody would even be talking about it. And actually, some of this rearrangement has been done before, even in that office. But it has not raised this kind of hullabaloo and so on. It's just because of the political environment in which we are. And now, anything goes, as it were. Even if it is a simple, straightforward action, it's held hostage by the politics of the day. And then now, people go to town, become the subject of funeral speeches and church speeches and so on and so forth. I honestly don't think that, this is something that required that kind of thing. About the Honorable Tekla asked about the Constitution and the security of the Deputy President. I think I've answered this question several times. By law and by tradition, His Excellency the Deputy President is guarded by the Presidential Escort Unit with a special team that is set aside for that particular purpose. Does the current holder of the office have that? I answered that, and I've actually provided the statistics and the figures about who's there. About the followers' stress, Honorable Tekla was asking about people are stressed and the followers are getting stressed. Well, followers get stressed because their leaders stress them. As simple as that. Because the followers, get stressed because their leaders stress them. Because you wake up in the morning and what you're drumming to people is things like this, basically lying to people. If you wake up every day, your business is to lie to people, tell them things that do not exist. Lie every day, and you have seen that. You are all here. You have seen that in this country, where you can almost conclude that some people's career is about lying. They will never tell anything truthful. You wake up in the morning and misinterpret things and talk about things that have not happened anywhere. Oh, we are being finished. That's why I said the politics of sympathy addiction. Everything is about sympathy. Sympathize with me. I am dying, I'm being finished. The government is switching off the sun and the moon and so on. If you live that way, then you stress your followers. The stress of your followers is coming from the stress of the leaders. If leaders were honest with people, addressed issues honestly, and are dealt with matter, why would the followers be stressed? The followers are stressed because of their leaders. That is my view, and that's what I would tell Honorable Tekla. That let people address the issues in a dispassionate manner, in a very clear and objective manner, and there will be no issue about it. Honorable Ngunjiri is worried, so who do we trust when it comes to issues of security and so on? I would like to reiterate this position, which has been made clear by many people, many greater people and greater minds than myself and my colleagues before you this morning. That we are leaders for a season. We have been given an opportunity to make a contribution to our country for a season. We are not going to be here forever. I am, I think, the 12th or 13th Minister of Interior. There will be a 14th, a 15th, and even a 64th Minister of Interior in Kenya. While we have the opportunity, we do what is right for our people and what is right for the country. And formal communications and formal channels of engagement are clear to everybody, that we address each other with a measure of respect. But Mr. Chairman, let me say this, and this was spoken to very eloquently by Honorable Kaluma. Nothing will sustain us than protecting institutions that have been created by the Constitution and by the law. And institutions are bigger than all of us. But you see, if you get engaged in subverting institutions and undermining institutions from time to time, it becomes a challenge, as it were. So who do we believe? We will believe formal, proper, truthful, factual communication from an office. That's what we will believe. And there are structures. This is a government that is about over 6 decades old. We have found a tradition. This country has been managed by people since 1963 to this day, and they have established traditions of engagement and how you conduct government business. If you have a challenge, You go to your supervisors and discuss it with them. You don't write letters, using street language, and then you put it in social media, and then, you engage in cheap populism, throwing an irrelevant tantrum, in the hope of gaining sympathy. You're basically playing for sympathy, and not caring about the country as it were. So, Honorable Mujiri, who do we believe? We believe formal, factual, truthful communication that respects the structures of government, knowing as we do, and as we must at all times, that we are only individuals. We are here today, tomorrow we are gone. And then we must hand over to the generations that come after us the institutions that were handed to us. Honorable Junet asked the question, is it moral, the situation that we have right now? I think as a honest public servant, I would be pretending if I didn't honestly say, I also don't think it's moral, what we have right now. I am as chastised as everyone else is on this particular matter. And I agree, and my colleagues at the Ministry of Interior and all the heads of the agencies will work with you, honorable members, to look at the law and see how we rectify this situation, so that it may not be abused as we go into the future. Because where there are no regulations, where there are no good controls, the propensity for abuse is huge. And then none of us is holy enough not to be tempted to abuse, discretion, if that discretion is not controlled or discretion is not guided. And then, and a situation emerges where you abuse discretion, then you turn around after you abuse discretion and claim sympathy, and so on. So in this particular case, because human beings are human beings, and we are all human beings, and we can make mistakes. Where challenges of this kind exist is where we, as the executive branch of government, reporting to you as the people of Kenya's representatives, we need to work with you to see how we can overcome these kinds of challenge through statutory action, as it were. And I think finally, I'm grateful you allow me, Mr. Chairman, to make my final comment. The Honorable Vice Chair asked a question, and the Inspector General has whispered to me here that, I respond to it. Is this work that was done by the previous IG or something else? Institutions are continuous. I would hesitate to individualize actions and individualize things when they have happened. Let us now step on to a new order which says we have noticed where the gaps are and the challenges, and now let us learn from them. And I think if I say so on behalf of my colleague here, the Inspector General, I think that satisfies the situation. Let's not individualize or particularize. Let us now learn from it and come together as a people who love their country and want their country to do better and correct the mistakes that have been done. I would like to stop there, Mr. Chairman, unless you like me to make a closing remark.
Yes, for avoidance of doubt, I wanted members so that we are clear. You will, so that we are clear.